Architect here with Architect, and today we're actually going to be reviewing the Lenovo T14 Gen 2 laptop. It is Lenovo's newest iteration of the T14. They had, obviously, as you could tell by the name, probably one iteration of the laptop last year. They kind of updated it a little bit this year with the whole second Gen 2 thing. And today I'm really just going to kind of get into just a whole in-depth review about the whole laptop. I have some thoughts on it, and let me put it this way. So, here you have it, the Lenovo T14 Gen 2 laptop. The laptop runs approximately $3,200 with the configuration that I have. It's the top of the line, highest end configuration that you can get. Runs with an i7 1185 G7 processor. 16 gigabytes of RAM, but I personally upgraded it to 32 gigabytes of RAM. Has a 512 gigabyte SSD, NVMe SSD, I'm sorry. But again, that's something that you can also upgrade to 1 terabyte of storage. It has a 14-inch 500 nits 1920 by 1080 display, 720p resolution webcam with the built-in IR blaster. The display has this interesting feature called Privacy Guard built into it, which I'll touch more on that a little bit later in the video. 2 USB 3.2 ports, 2 USB-C/Thunderbolt 4 ports, Ethernet port, HDMI out, SD card slot, micro SD card slot, SIM card slot, you name it, this laptop pretty much has it. It sits at Lenovo's higher end outside of Lenovo's P-Series laptops, which their P-Series laptops are their workstations, which are used more for graphic design, video editing, things like that, or non-gaming laptops, because you can also get some gaming laptops that are better, but as far as productivity goes, as far as business goes, the T14 or the T15 is what you are going to get. So let's jump right into it. So first up, we will talk about the layout. Has your standard ThinkPad Lenovo IBM keyboard that they have pretty much had since the beginning of time, basically, as far back as I can remember. They have the, what is it called? Track point? Is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. That you can use to control the mouse as opposed to using the touchpad. The touchpad, speaking of, feels really nice, clicky enough, offers enough resistance that you get some tactile feedback, so to speak. It actually does press. It's not a fancy capacitive touch trackpad. It's a physical button, left click, right click. It is a decent size. I think it's a solid size for a trackpad. Like I said, it feels really nice. Right next to the trackpad, to the right of that, you've got your fingerprint sensor. I am not a huge fan of the way fingerprint sensors have historically been done on laptops. There are a few laptops that do have some level of decency, but all in all, I am not a fan of fingerprint sensors on laptops. I experience far more failures with fingerprint sensors on laptops than I do with, say, a fingerprint sensor on a phone. Those tend to be more reliable. I don't know if it's because those fingerprint sensors tend to not be recessed at all. You have this, I don't know why laptops do that. The fingerprint sensor is always recessed into the casing. My thought would be just make that portion of the casing clear. Like just make it like clear plastic or something like that. Just something I can, boom. I don't know. But maybe there's a reason they don't do that. But like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the fingerprint sensors. It works. It's just not nearly as foolproof as the IR blaster that you get for Windows Hello. Right above the keyboard, or I guess not above it, but like above it to the right, you have your power button over here, as well as literally right above the keyboard, you have your speakers, which I suppose this is a nice segue into how do the speakers sound. You have some laptops that use those up-firing speakers or speakers built into the display, such as the Surface laptop or Surface Book or laptops like that have the speakers built in. And those, for example, sound really good. And then you have other laptops that the speakers, they leave a little bit to be desired. I am happy to say that these speakers function very well. Sound good. They're not anything that's going to blow your mind. They are Dolby Atmos tuned, so you do have that going for you. But like I said, they're not anything that's going to like blow your socks off or anything like that. But they are sufficiently loud and sufficiently clear. It doesn't feel like it's too much high end. Doesn't feel like it's too much low end. I do think that I like the sound of the speakers on, say, the Surface Book, for example, or the Surface Laptop, for example. I like those better, even though with the Lenovo speakers, you do get more bass. I think with the more, I guess what you would call it, high-end or fashion-esque devices, right? I think they care about that maybe a little bit more. But either way, regardless, speakers sound great. They'll be good for whatever you want to. Up next, let's move on to the display. I have a lot of good things to say about the display, but really one major gripe, which is also one of the things that I think is kind of cool about the display, but I think it just needs a little bit more tweaking. So as I said before, you get a full HD 1920 by 1080 display resolution, 500 nits of brightness, the color accuracy, color reproduction, it's all very, very, very good. I'll put some official numbers somewhere, up here or something, I don't know. The 500 nits of brightness works very well outdoors, especially when you add into the fact that it has an anti-glare coating on it as well. It's a matte finish instead of a glossy finish, which, especially when you're talking about business devices, I tend to prefer the matte finish anyway. Now, what brings that down for me personally is the Privacy Guard feature. Now, if you don't know, Privacy Guard is a built-in privacy filter. It's just that. On the laptop, you press Function and the letter D, and it turns on the privacy filter. It works, right? It's functional, but I think it does cause some issues that don't go without notice. So, for example, I have another Lenovo laptop that is 300 nits for brightness, okay, versus the 500 nits that I get on the T14. If you're looking at both laptops straight on, there is a visible difference in brightness. As you start to get off center a bit, the brightness on the T14 gets dimmer, noticeably faster than it does on the device that does not have the Privacy Guard feature. So I'm almost wondering if they make that brightness so high in order to be able to counterbalance that Privacy Guard feature. I do like it. I think it's a great idea. I just think implementation needs to be a little bit better.
We all think the bag was a nice idea.
Yeah.
But not pointing any fingers. they could have been done better.
And it just gives you some really funky viewing angles, I think. It's not a make or break thing for me. Obviously, I really like the laptop. I just, like I said, wish that could be a little bit different. But outside of that, the display is great. Above the display is where you have your 720p camera, which is disgusting, especially when you consider the fact that you're paying $3,200 American dollars for this laptop, and the best you could do was like a 1.3 megapixel camera. And it's not like the bezels are like super thin either, so they were trying to conserve space or squeeze this camera into. No, they're just being cheap. Lenovo, like, come on. In this modern era of COVID, of Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all those other video conferencing applications, you're telling me the best you could do is 720? Not even 1080? Like 720? Really? Come on now, Lenovo. $3,200 for 720. That aside, I guess it's okay for a 720p camera. I mean, you know what you're going to get with it. It's going to be as good or as bad as the next 720p camera, I suppose. The only redeeming factor is that, as I stated before, you do get that IR blaster built in, so you can use facial recognition for Windows Hello, which does work very well. Doesn't matter whether it's dark in the room, whether it's dimly lit, whether it's extremely bright outside, that Windows Hello seems to work very well for me, especially after you've like had it scan your face more than once. You can do it 2 or 3 times. It works like a charm every time. It's actually one of my favorite features that Microsoft introduced into Windows 10 and now Windows 11 is that facial recognition feature. Let's talk about ports, right? Because this laptop has a lot of them. You're talking TF card reader, you're talking micro SD card slot, you're talking SIM card slot, 2 full-size USB 3.2 ports, 2 USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, as well as Lenovo's official docking port, HDMI out, microphone/headphone combo jack. You got your cable lock port on it. I mean, Ethernet port, which is extremely rare in laptops these days, but this laptop has it. And like I said, when I say you got everything you want, you got everything you want. If you don't know what that official Lenovo docking station port is for, that is, Lenovo makes an official docking station. I'm not talking about a USB-C type dock that you just plug into a USB-C port and go. I mean like the old school, pick the laptop up, sit it down, push the thing in so that it makes the connection, lock your laptop into the dock, like full docking station. And I still prefer the USB-C dock, quite honestly. But, you know, that's personal preference, I suppose. At this point, I have covered build quality. Well, I haven't really gone over the build quality, but again, it's everything that you would expect from a ThinkPad device. It uses that carbon magnesium composite type exterior that gives it that kind of matte finish that somehow is both a fingerprint magnet and not a fingerprint magnet at the same time. It's weird how Lenovo accomplished that. I don't know, but you know, feels great, feels sturdy. You don't get, you know, any like bending or creaks or anything like that when you're using it. The keyboard is very sturdy. You don't feel any mushiness to the keys as you're typing. It is, you know, top of the line Lenovo build quality. So the build quality is great. We went over the ports that it has. We talked about the internals of the device. We've gone over the camera. Really the only thing kind of left to talk about is just some of the, I don't know, I guess we'll call them nuances. So one of the good things about this laptop is that it is user upgradable, which is getting rare in this day and age. But unscrew 6 screws, pop the back cover off of the laptop, you can access the SSD, you can access the Wi-Fi card, as well as a user replaceable memory chip. It has one slot that's user replaceable. So if you get the laptop with 16 gigs of RAM, it will have 16 gig soldered onto the motherboard, as well as that open 16 gig or that open memory slot. If you order with 32 gig, then you get the 16 gig built into the laptop, as well as a 16 gig chip. That chip can be upgraded to 32 gig for a total of 48 gigabytes of RAM, which I think is great. Not that anybody should really need 48 gigabytes of RAM in a laptop, but if you find that you have a need for it, this laptop will allow you to do that. You mix that with the ports that it has on it, 2 full-size USB, as well as 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, as well as HDMI out, as well as an Ethernet jack. It really does make this device kind of an all-in-one kind of thing. The laptop can push 3 displays at a time. So it's either going to be 2 external displays and your laptop display, or it can simply push 3 displays. 3 1920 by 1080 displays. If you cut that down to only pushing 2 displays, then it can push one of those displays at 4K. It will not do 2 at 4K, but it will do 1 at 4K and 1 at full HD, or it can do 2 at 2K. So, you know, again, that's just another one of those things that's kind of nice to have. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I think it's a really solid device. I think if you have the money to be able to spend on it, I do not think that you will be disappointed with it. I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it a lot. So yeah, that's kind of my review on the laptop. Please feel free to leave your comments down below in the comment section. If you guys own one, if you're thinking about owning one, if you have any questions about it, leave it down in the comments. I'll check it out. And I also leave a link in the description. I compare the T14 to Lenovo's newest version of the X13. So be sure to check that video out too. This has been Architect with Architect.